Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Bracket Busters podcast. And as a continuation of some of our offseason reviews, I sent a poll out on Twitter the other day and asked you all for what team you would like next. I got a lot of feedback from you all, and I've added a lot of teams to the list. And the winner of the poll was Murray State. So this new episode here will be discussing Murray State's offseason additions and any preseason expectations that we can have for the Racers here coming into the next season. Murray State's entering their third season here in the Missouri Valley. They were longtime members of the Ohio Valley Conference, for decades upon decades, where they saw a lot of success. And unfortunately for the Racers here in the first couple of seasons in the Missouri Valley, their results have not been what fans are used to. In their last two seasons, they finished 17-15 in the first year and then just 12-20 last year. Fans were pretty disappointed in last season's results, obviously. And just for comparison here, in the 12 seasons prior, between 2010 and 2022, the Racers had a record of 312 and 110 in the Ohio Valley. So it was pretty much consistently always Murray State or Murray State and Belmont. That's why the Bruins and the Racers had such a heated rivalry, and then it was awesome whenever both those teams moved over to the Missouri Valley as well. Neither team has necessarily established themselves in the new Missouri Valley yet, but that's okay. Mostly because this conference is much better. Like, I know whenever we saw those teams, like for example, heck, the Ohio Valley was a two-bid league not too long ago. Because and think about those seasons when Murray State had Jaw and Belmont had Dylan Windler. That's who it was, Dylan Windler. Like there was NBA talent on those teams that were just like next level, that actually elevated a conference like the Ohio Valley to have a two-bid league, which is absolutely insane. Because just for comparison, last year, the Ohio Valley was 28th out of 32 conferences. Meanwhile, the Missouri Valley was 10th. So, if you're a Belmont Bruin fan or you're a Murray State fan, I really would not take these results that you've had these last couple seasons comparative to what you had when you were in the Ohio Valley as nothing too serious to talk about here. Mostly because there's a big transition period. Matt McMahon went to LSU, and this is Steve Prom's second gig here at Murray State. I think he's turning the team around, and I'm going to talk here about the roster that he's built out for next season, and why I do think the results are actually going to be better next season coming into it. I had a lot of people were like, "Oh, Steve Prom, his time's up," whatever that case may be. 2 seasons into his second stint, in the middle of a transition from a Ohio Valley Conference to a much better, one of the top mid-major conferences in the entire country. So let's just recap here a little bit about the roster changes. Here's who's returning on the roster. They have John McCreer. We're going with McCreer. He's a redshirt freshman. Going to talk about him. I think there's some things to like about him. He had a lot of offers coming out of high school from a lot of other mid-majors. So he could be a contributor. We got Patrick Chu. He did not play too much. He averages 4.9 minutes per game. He's a sophomore. Averaged less than a point, less than a rebound, less than an assist. We got Justin Morgan. He's a junior. He's coming in. He off 3.8 points, 2.5 rebounds per game. Alden Applewhite. He's a junior transfer who actually started playing in about the second half of last season. He averaged 5.2 points, 2.6 rebounds last year. Nick Ellington, he's one of their biggest pieces, and I'm going to talk about him and another guy about their two returners that, in my opinion, are going to be big contributors on the team next year. Ellington's in his last season as a senior, he averaged 11.3 points, 6.3 rebounds, and 1.5 blocks per game last year. You got Jacoby Wood, who's the other senior who I was referring to that's coming back. He averaged 12.5 points, 4 rebounds, 4.1 assists, and 1.2 steals per game. Super versatile player. He's a transfer actually out of Belmont, which is kind of crazy that you had not just inter-conference, but you had an conference rival transfer from Belmont to Murray. Then we got Laurent Rice. He's a sophomore. 3.1 points per game. He averaged just 8 minutes per game last year. However, that's super. Also, my cat just decided to hop up, so everybody can say hello to my cat while I do this. Anyway, so a lot of returning pieces here. I'll talk about who they lost in the portal and lost due to ineligibility. They lost some key pieces as well, but actually I think they've reloaded. So let's talk about who they've actually added in from the transfer portal. So they had Kieran Lindsay. We're going to go with that. He's coming out of Texas Tech. So I actually have a little bit of in-depth conversation with him because I actually think he's going to be a super key piece of the Racers this coming season. Just 6.3 minutes, he averaged 2.7 points, 1.3 rebounds per game. He actually saw his minutes tick down quite a bit from his freshman year. I think it's a big key piece to this is Texas Tech just had an insane team this past season. So it was probably warranted that, somebody like this who saw his minutes increase from a freshman going to sophomore is going to transfer out. And I think by transferring down into a mid-major conference, it's going to be a really big opportunity for him to try to step up and have a key role on a team like Murray State. And then we got Terrence Harcum. He's coming from App State. He averaged 12 points, 2.5 rebounds, 1 assist per game. On a really good team like App State, this is a great transfer from Murray State. You can't really complain about this type of player coming in. You got then my favorite pickup they've had so far is Keelan Milton. He is a senior coming out of Arkansas Pine Bluff. He averaged 17 points, 6.6 rebounds, and 2.9 assists per game last year. We got also another interconference transfer in A.J. Ferguson. He's a senior coming out of Southern Illinois. He averaged 8.8 points, 5.2 rebounds, and nearly an assist per game. They got 2 incoming freshmen I'm going to hit on. I'm high on these 2 guys. You got Chang Ring and you got Jordan McCollum, 2 incoming freshmen. Then here's the players that they lost. They lost Sean Walker Jr. He averages 3.1 points, 1.6 rebounds. Quincy Anderson was their top scorer last year. He averaged 12.6 points, 4.4 rebounds, 1.1 assists, and 1 steal per game. He was a key contributor. He was just unfortunately out of ineligible years left. Rob Perry was also out of eligible years left. He averaged 11.9 points, 5.1 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 steal per game. He was part of the core 4, in which they're retaining 2 in Jacoby Wood and Nick Ellington, that were kind of the key contributors of the Racers last season. They also lost a couple guys at the transfer portal. They lost Malik Abdul Gawad. Don't know how to say that one, not going to lie. Anyway, he transferred to UMass. He averages 3.5 points, 2.7 rebounds per game. They lost Sam Murray II. He averaged in just 8 minutes per game, 1.5 points, 1.6 rebounds. He has not yet to commit. Then they lost Brian Moore Jr. to Norfolk State. He averaged 9.2 points, 1.6 rebounds, 1.5 assists per game. So kind of diving into all that, I know that's a lot of names and a lot of statistics out at once here. It's probably hard to keep track of a little bit here. But out of their top 4 scorers, like I mentioned, they're returning 2. They're returning Jacoby Wood and Nick Ellington, which is huge. However, they did lose both Quincy Anderson and Rob Perry, given, again, they were out of eligible seasons. They did not transfer. Anderson had led the way in offense at just 12.6 points per game. So, in my opinion, that shows that the offense really struggled last year for the Racers when your top scorer is only averaging 12.6. Now, given those 4 guys are all averaging over 10 points per game, so that's not thing to, kind of shy away from here. However, when you're losing that type of talent, and that, you're only averaging 12.6, you don't really have a go-to guy. Really showed that the offense struggled last year for the Racers. They finished 10th out of 12 in the Missouri Valley in terms of scoring. However, the defensive side, which I'm going to highlight a lot here throughout this video, was pretty potent. They were 4th out of 12 in the Missouri Valley in scoring defense, so definitely did not shy away from the defensive end here. So I think retaining Jacoby and Nick Ellington is going to be a huge boost for the team coming in next season. Jacoby's a veteran presence. Like I mentioned, he came from Belmont, transferred over to Murray. He played in all 32 games last season, averaged over 36 minutes per game. He shot 45% from the floor, 37.4% from 3. He had some ice-cold game-winning shots, including just a heartbreaker from Evansville Aces, in which he just sealed the game. He also hit some other key shots throughout the year. He's a just straight-up bucket getter for Murray State. When he was on, they won. Like, that was pretty much a given. If he was the one contributing, if he was only putting up 4 or 5 points per game, Murray State was going to lose those games. Like, he was their guy last season. Ellington's also a great option at the forward position. He's got a super impressive ability to finish around the rim and alter shots. Like I mentioned, he averaged 1.5 blocks per game when I was going through his statistics, but he also shot nearly 60%. He shot 58.8% from the floor. He's not a three-point shooter. He's strictly a big guy down low. So he'd actually, I don't think he hit a 3 last year, actually, if I'm being honest with you. So, great guy to have down low, finisher around the rim. He had some monster stat lines. Against Southern Illinois, he had 14 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and 5 blocks. That wasn't the only time he had 5 blocks either. He actually finished with 3 or more blocks in 7 games this season. And he finished with 4 double-doubles, but then in 6 more games, he was really close to it. Like, he was literally just like a rebound off or so. So, just one more rebound in some of those games, he could have had, 4 to 6 more double-doubles on the season. So, I mean, this is just an impressive big man for Murray State. Huge get having him come back. So, in terms of what Coach Prom kind of went after in the portal, he definitely went after more of a veteran presence. He picked up a lot of older players. I know I kind of hit on this a little bit, but Keelan Milton is definitely the best pickup for them coming out of the transfer portal. He posted some just video game numbers last year. He shot 50.5% from the floor, despite shooting just 35% from three. So he can hit threes, there's no doubt about that. But the fact that you shoot 50.5% from the floor as a guard is insane. This isn't a big man down low that's just hitting all layups and hitting bunny shots. This is a guy that's going out and creating his own shot. He averaged 17 points and 6.6 rebounds per game. I'm going to hit a lot of this throughout this video, but Murray State's biggest problem last year was they didn't have a point guard. So Milton actually is kind of in that shooting guard towards point guard realm. He comes in at about 6'4", so he's got a little bit more height for a true point guard. A lot of times true point guards you're seeing 6'1", 6'2". He's got a couple more inches on him. But Milton just a season ago averaged 4.2 assists. So he's not just a go-to guy on your offense. He can also handle the ball very clearly. Like his assists dipped down this year under 3, but he has that in him. Obviously, to be able to do it, because that season, just like the season prior, he led the team in assists at 4.2. So he very clearly can handle the ball for himself. Terrence Harkins coming out of App State, it's perfect fit into the offense. He shot 37.5% from the floor, 35.6% from beyond the arc. He had a 9-game stretch where he averaged almost 17 points per game, so it's super good offensive weapon for Murray State. Can't complain out of there. In a similar fashion, A.J. Ferguson out of SIU, he shot 47.8% from the floor, provides an excellent presence from rebounding. He stands at just 6'6", but he's a great rebounder. He averaged 5.2 rebounds per game. In his last 6 games of the season, he averaged nearly 10 points. He averaged 9.5 points per game and 8.5 rebounds. So he was a great player for SIU down the stretch, and I think he's going to be a huge pickup for Murray State here as well. Kyron Lindsey is a little bit of a flyer pick here. I know I hit on him briefly here. He saw his minutes dip. His freshman season, he averaged 6.2 points, 5.2 rebounds in 20 minutes per game for Texas Tech. He shot 54.2% from the floor. However, like I mentioned, his playing time diminished quite a bit. He averaged just 6.3 minutes per game last season, but he still shot 62.5% from the floor, averaged 2.7 points and 1.3 rebounds. So absolutely nothing to shy away from here. He comes in at 6'8", so he's going to complement Nick Ellington super well here, in my opinion. I think he's going to be a nice go-to guy coming off the bench. He'll probably actually start some games as well. Would not be surprised. He kind of starts some type of combo of Ellington and Lindsey here. That would make the most sense. So aside from the portal, I know I mentioned this briefly. You got 2 really excellent high school recruits coming out. Murray State's always recruited well out of high school, and that trend is continuing here. That he's got Cheong Ring and Jordan McCullum coming out. Both were listed as 3-star per 24/7 Sports. Ring, actually, though, was listed as a 4-star per Verbal, so, you're probably talking anywhere between the 3 and 4-star. He had some great mid-major offers. He had Murray State, obviously, Eastern Michigan, Arizona State, Arkansas State, UT Arlington, Chattanooga, North Dakota, San Diego, Sam Houston State, New Mexico, Montana, Northern Arizona, and Bryant. So all really great mid-majors here. Nobody that's really on the end of, the lower mid-major ranks. He's 6'8", so he's going to be a great addition to an already loaded kind of forward position here. McCullum also had some impressive offers. He had Murray, Georgia, Mizzou, Ohio, Tennessee Tech, Ole Miss, and Robert Morris. 6'7", again, another option at the forward position. I mean, they're just completely loaded at the forward position. In terms of the players they lost, the only one that I'm going to say I would kind of miss if I was a Murray fan would be Brian Moore Jr. At 6'1", he would have given him a nice option at that point guard, shooting guard position. Especially considering all of his options have been over 6'4", and most of them have been at the forward position. Moore averaged 9.2 points on 46.5% shooting from the floor. However, I will say what hindered him was he wasn't a good three-point shooter. He shot just 19% last season on 5 of 26. The season prior, he didn't shoot much. I mean, he shot 37%, but he just shot 12 for 32. So, despite his size, you obviously want to get more offense production from beyond the arc if you're about 6'1", 6'2". It hurts you dramatically when you're that size and you really can't shoot from outside the arc. So, kind of diving in a little bit here to the preseason expectations. I know I mentioned this at the beginning of the video. Murray State fans are just dying for a winning season. These Racer fans are not used to losing, so when they are in this kind of drought a little bit of what I would call a dominating season, it does hurt the fan base, and they want to see that win. They're not used to going in and losing games like they did in the opening round of Missouri State of the Arch Madness. They lost 60-35. I mean, quite honestly, that was probably the worst shooting performance I've ever seen in my entire life as a college basketball fan. So they're not used to this, and they've got a long line of history of players. You're talking Isaiah Cannon, Cam Payne, John Morant. I mean, you can go down a list of 30 guys that are all been just phenomenal at some sort of the professional level. So, kind of looking at what this is going to probably look like. Obviously, the front court's not going to be a problem this season. I've hit on this a lot. He's got Coach Prom's got numerous options. He's got Nick Ellington. He's got Lindsey. He's got Alden Applewhite. He's got John McCreer, Jordan McCullum, Jan Green. Like, Ellington's going to hold down the starting five spot. There's no doubt about that. But what I'm going to personally be excited to see here is to see what Applewhite and Lindsey can do. I think they can take advantage of their extended opportunities here. Applewhite took a little bit of a step back. He transferred in last season. Actually, was eligible to play around Christmas. Kind of where that college semester line kind of lines up, so where he was able to play in the second half of the season. However, he saw his numbers dip. He actually saw his shooting percentage dip quite a bit. His shooting percentage dipped by 13%, and he went from averaging 7.7 points to just 5.2 points, despite actually a slight increase in minutes per game. So despite having a little bit more opportunity in the second half of the season, he saw his numbers dip back a little bit. But from what I saw in some of those games, like, he was just chucking shots. I mean, I think his first game went for like 3 for 9 or something like that. Like, the ability is there. So if he can try to harness that in a little bit, I think he's got a great opportunity in what's going to be an extended opportunity in terms of minutes next season. So I also think Lindsey, I know, highlighted his freshman year performance. I think there's going to be a massive hope here from dropping down from a power conference down into a mid-major. Again, I think I've probably mentioned this in like 3 videos at this point, but Malik Diaz is just a perfect example of that. He played freshman year at Vandy, didn't play much, transferred down to Belmont, dominated. It could be a similar-esque vibe here. He's coming in, he's got great size, forward position. Didn't play much at Texas Tech last season, but he's going to transfer down into the Missouri Valley, play for Murray, where he's going to have plenty of minutes that he wants, however much he wants, really, and however much Coach Prom's going to, he's going to be able to just throw him out there immediately, pretty much. So I think he's got a great opportunity to step up, and I think it's going to be a key piece to what is going to happen here for the Racers. McCreer redshirted last season, so we haven't really seen what he's capable of. He had some great mid-majors. He had Kent State, Morehead State, Akron, Arizona State, Radford, and Jacksonville State on top of Murray. So it could be a nice underrated option off the bench if he's proven capable of earning minutes. Obviously, we'll probably see through summer and going into the fall practices. And then, obviously, he's got the 2 incoming freshmen at McCollum and Ring. I think both of them are going to be nice options coming off the bench. I know Ring has come in and wanted to make an impact immediately. Some of Murray State's reporters have hit on that, so he's going to have a golden opportunity as well. Scoring really isn't going to be an issue for Murray. I know I mentioned Jacoby Woods coming back. I've hit on Milton a lot, and Ferguson a lot, and Harkham a lot. They're just going to be offensively better. I don't think they're going to rank 10th this season coming in. I really just don't see how that's possible, because those guys don't even account for a couple other options they have. They have Justin Morgan and Laurent Rice, who really didn't play too many minutes last season, but both can take that step forward. They're getting older, so the more experience you build up, obviously, the better you can be. I'm putting a lot of stock in Milton. I think he's going to open up a lot of opportunities. Like I mentioned, last season they didn't have a go-to guy. Like, Jacoby Wood was kind of that guy. Rob Perry was kind of the guy. Both of them were just kind of hit or miss. I think Jacoby Wood is going to feed better in an environment where there's a true point guard, because if you have a true point guard, you can take pressure off your other guys like Wood, where he's going to be able to open up on three-point line, open up for other, pick and roll opportunity. Like, there's going to be different opportunities there for him. If you have a true point guard that can take the pressure off of him. So, they didn't have a guy last year that could do that. So I think having someone like Milton be able to come in and try to take some of that pressure off. He averaged 4.2 assists a couple seasons ago. So he can kind of regain that form as what I would call a true point guard. Not only can Milton score, he's not a point guard, or he's not a guard that can't score and just, only handle the ball. He's going to provide you offensive spark, and he's going to provide you the ability to open up opportunities for other players. So I'm putting a lot of stock into them offensively. I think they're going to improve dramatically. Now, coming off talking about Milton, my biggest concern is their point guard play. Milton is not what I would call a true point guard. Can he handle the ball? Absolutely. Did he lead the team in assists just a couple seasons ago? Absolutely. However, a big caveat to that was I don't want him to have to step into this new point guard role where he's going to see his offensive production drop because of that. What do I mean by that? So, when he was leading the team in assists at Arkansas Pine Bluff, his points per game was only at 13. So, when he kind of stepped out of what I would call the true point guard role into more of a shooting guard position who can handle the ball as well, he saw his offensive production dip up. So, I'm a little bit disappointed that Steve Prohm didn't go out into the portal and find a guy who's averaging 4 or 5 assists per game. Again, Milton can handle that, but even when Milton comes out of that game, I don't know who's going to handle the ball for him. I'm going to hit on a guy here who I think could step up, but I'm disappointed they didn't go into the portal and try to find a kid who's averaging 8 points, 4 or 5 assists per game, somebody that could have come off the bench and helped give minutes where the offense was stagnant. A lot of the times last season when I watched Murray was they just had no ball movement. You would spend a lot of time. Their defense was excellent. They held teams. I think they held UNI to like 40 points in one game or something. I watched them live against Evansville, and that was the worst shooting performance half I've seen Evansville have in a really long time. And Evansville has had some bad years recently. But Murray's defense just absolutely smothered him in the first half. So their defense wasn't a problem, but being able to have a point guard come in and be able to take that relief off the offense is going to elevate your offense to just another level. So what I hope is Milton doesn't see a decreased performance offensively. I want him to be able to come in and be that 14, 15-point a game guy. I want him to be the go-to guy with Jacoby Wood being a complement option on the offensive end for the Racers. So I'm going to kind of throw a guy out there that I think might be able to step up here. I think Laurent Rice might be able to step up as an option. Racer fans didn't really see him much. Again, he just averaged 8 minutes per game last season in 15 games. But he's coming in. He's listed as true point guard. He's 6'3". Listen to some of his offers. I mean, he's a 3-star, kind of borderline 4-star, depending on where you're looking at. Coming out of high school, he had Georgetown, Penn State, Notre Dame, Marquette, VCU, Xavier, Dayton, Ohio State, West Virginia, Kansas State, and Purdue. That's insane. I mean, you're talking about a guy who didn't then come into Murray, which some people jokingly call point guard you because you got guys like Isaiah Cannon, Cam Payne, John Morant. Like, this guy can play, obviously. He's got the potential there. He wasn't getting looked at by all those schools to not be able to play basketball. So if he can take a step forward, which maybe that's what they're putting their stock in. Maybe that's why Steve Prohm didn't go out and get another point guard. I'm not in those conversations, obviously. I'm not an insider at Murray. I don't know. So maybe that's what he was putting his stock into, is Laurent Rice can come out and give some great minutes coming off the bench, kind of take that step forward in what is an extended opportunity for him. Excuse me. So, like, if you can come in and do that, I mean, that's going to be an immense piece off the bench for him. Or even, in some cases, starting. Having him come in, let's say you got a lineup of him, Milton, and Jacoby, 3 offensive pieces, then you got Ellington. I mean, Murray State could have a really good team if that could happen. So with that being said, at this point, it's really hard to project where they could end up next season. Missouri Valley's wide open. Indiana State's been demolished, been 5 coaching changes. It's wide open. There's no team who I'm going to sit here today and say should win. People are going to argue Bradley. I'd probably say, yeah, they're probably the favorites at this point in time. However, there is no team that is just like Indiana State last year, where even then preseason, they weren't picked, like they weren't favored necessarily as like the team that's just going to like be dominant above everybody else. But like Indiana State and Drake like had that presence that were like they're going to be good. And if you're a Missouri Valley fan, you knew Indiana State was going to be better than what they were projected initially. We don't have a team like that this year. So, it's wide open. I legitimately think Murray State could finish anywhere between 8th and like 3rd. I really do. I don't know what to expect from this team. It purely is going to depend on their ability to find someone to play the point guard. I know I just hit on that for like 5 minutes. Their defense is going to was great last season. It's gotten even better between the portal and the freshmen coming in. Plus, their offense has improved as well. We got Milton coming in, and Ferguson, who's going to provide nice options, and McCrum. So, like, you got 3 guys coming in the portal that can provide an uptick in offense. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I just really do think like they just got to improve their ability to run an offense. They got to be able to not be static every single possession coming in. So, like with that being said, I can see the Racers finishing probably anywhere between 15 and 20 wins, good enough for an 8th to 5th place finish. That could be brutally wrong. They could come in and get 2nd. I mean that's literally how just variable this team is. There is no guarantee. They could also finish 10th if all of this fails. And you could say that, argue that about that for any team, but like a lot of teams, you're like, oh yeah, they got 3 guards, 2 guys, 2 big men, like they're going to be solid. They're going to be a 4th place team. They're going to be a 3rd place team. Like they could be anywhere between that. They could also come out and win 24 games. I mean, like legitimately, they got the talent to be able to do that. It just depends, can they gel and can they piece that together? Like last season, they just didn't gel. And they didn't have a true point guard to run the offense. That killed them. So I think their defense and front court is going to really elevate them to another level. I think what's going to hurt, though, is if you don't have a point guard running the offense and you realize that you don't really have that many 3-point shooting options, they're going to smother you in the paint. When they smother you in the paint, they're going to take out Ellington and your other guys. It's going to just kill you offensively. So it's like you're going to have to rely on a point guard to be able to run an offense and generate opportunities for your guards to come in and hit those mid-range shots, hit those three-pointers. Like you're going to have to generate offense through moving the ball. That's how you're going to have to do it. You can't be stagnant every single time. So that's probably why this projection that I'm giving Racer fans is probably not going to be what they want to hear. However, I'm just going to flat out tell you I can be totally wrong. I mean, when I was like writing this and ranking this and doing the research on it, I really have no clue where to place this team. Like it could be anywhere between again 8th place all the way to 3rd or higher or lower. Like it is just a team that when they start practicing and maybe we can get a vibe through preseason, like through a couple of their exhibitions, they could be really good. They could also be just mediocre. So with that being said, for the Racer fans, I think if someone like Laurent Rice can step up and play that point guard position and help out Milton, take some pressure off him from being the only point guard, I think they could be on the higher end. I think Racer fans can be very pleased with the results this season. I don't see them going below 500. I really don't. I could see them around that. They were 17-15 in the first season in the Missouri Valley. I could see them maybe do something similar to that again. I don't see them having a 12-20 season like they did last year. I think things would just have to be a disastrous result for that. Considering all the change that's been happening around the Missouri Valley, I just think that they have a good enough team to not have to worry about doing that again. So I'm curious, after kind of discussing all this, where do you think Missouri or Murray State might end up? Drop it down in the comments. We have some other teams lined up here that I'm going to be covering soon. So thank you all for watching. And for Murray State, let's hope for a better season for y'all. Thank you.
What's going on, guys? I just also want to plug here that we are running a promotion through Bracket Busters. So if you actually go down into the link below into our Substack, you'll see on all of our articles that we actually post that if you use the code Bracket Busters, as with both B's capitalized, when checking out at Crow's Nest Coffee Roasters online, which the link will also be down below, you will receive 10% off your order. Also, highly recommend overall that you go to our Substack and subscribe to our newsletters. They are our primary source of how you get information from us. We are starting to explore a little bit more into the video space here on YouTube and other channels. And I recommend that you go to Substack. That's always going to be the first place that we post our new media. So if you're a fan of college basketball, if you're a fan of mid-majors, go to Substack, check us out, give us a subscribe button. I would super appreciate it. Thank you all.